There you go.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, are you all right?
Doughty.
All right.
How are you?
All good, thank you. All good. Apart from the
Good,
rain
good.
and the cold and the wind and whatever else. Summer's gone now.
We don't have any of that yet. I
No.
know what I'm waiting for it, but it hasn't come across the country yet.
It's horrible here at the moment. Horrible.
Oh, and you'll notice, everybody, that we are joined today by Alicia Bratby.
Yeah.
Hello, Alicia. Thanks for joining. So
thanks for joining.
I know Alicia through she's a local trainer. She was one of the why does that always
It's always your dog. It's always your dog.
Always my dog. Always my dog. And I lock them away as well. Alicia was one of the few people, I believe, that I was able, when I first started training, we share clients, don't we, quite successfully. I might have to go and sort that out. We actually share clients quite successfully, and was one of the very few people when I first started that kind of, like me, embraced that every trainer can't do it all, and we kind of embraced it, didn't we? And Alicia and I really do follow that ethos. So that was how we got to know. She now trains my gun dog.
Yeah, the one that's making a noise in the background.
Yeah, the one that's like, I can hear her. I might have to it, and we'll see how we get on. So it was during a gun dog lesson just recently. It's a new thing for me. Alicia said that I would get a dig. Oh, look, now Alicia's
there you go. See,
you've invited them all now.
That's what's happened. That's what happens on these broadcasts.
It's all gone wrong. Yeah. Alicia said to me, "You will get hooked as much as you do agility," and I was like, "No, never." And now there I was today doing a little bit of homework. So.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we were chatting about how obviously the dog training world has changed, and yeah, we were chatting about the gun dog world trying to make the slip over. So kind of over to you, Alicia, into positive training, really.
So as you know, Emma, I class myself as a crossover trainer. And I class myself as a crossover trainer primarily from an obedience perspective, and that's just because I started training dogs when I was 9. And at those that are old enough to remember, it was all very just geared up to competition obedience and very kind of Barbara Woodhouse-esque.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have a huge amount of understanding of anything outside of training dogs to enter an obedience ring. And that's what kind of your local club was teaching. That was what obedience was. So I've been lucky, I guess, in some respects, to got into it in such a young age and to have seen kind of progressions. And as a teenager, I was quite rebellious. And so for me,
I don't believe that.
Just as a teenager,
quite rebellious. And so it was kind of my output of trying to find, different ways to do things than just doing what I was told. But I think actually, if I'm honest, quite a lot of that was because it didn't sit comfortably with me. So when I got into gun dog training, which is kind of a new foray for me, very much in sports and kind of dog world, that was the one thing I hadn't ever really touched on. And I made quite a decision to jump camp from breeds that I'd had previously and specifically get a gun dog, and took quite a while to do my research into what I was going to get. And what I realised when I looked for gun dog trainers and looked for some advice on certain things when I started my gun dog training was that a lot of that advice was still really quite old-fashioned. I struggle because I don't want to put down old-fashioned trainers. Some old-fashioned trainers are fantastic. They're really generous with their time and their experience. They've got some fantastic dogs and they've got way more experience than I have at working those dogs and competing those dogs. But what I didn't want to do was take what I felt was a step back in my training and go and do things the old-fashioned way when I knew damn well I didn't need to anymore. So I guess both from my experience, and I was very lucky to both locally and through friends know some people or be put in touch with some people, I was put through to a camp for retrieving for all occasions, a lady called Lena and a lady called Elsa. And I sort of turned up not really knowing what to expect with a very young flat coat, and they were all for like toys and tug and play and food. And this blew my mind because everything I'd looked at previously was like, you don't treat a gun dog, and you definitely don't tug a gun dog, and you definitely don't play with your gun dog.
Yeah.
And I'd done all of those things because my dog was never going to just be a gun dog. And then I got involved with clicker training, so through Clicker Gun Dog with Helen Phillips and through Teach Your Dog with Jules Morgan. And I've done quite a lot of work with both those ladies. And I would say that both those ladies have been able to give me, through the Gun Dog Trainers Academy and through their support and time, been able to give me ways to teach all of the gun dog exercises and have a gun dog that is very much wanting to work and doesn't have that slightly appeasing outlook on their face when I step onto a field or to train them. So we do have loads of fun and we do take toys and we are a bit kooky, and I have been mocked for whipping a ball out of my pocket, but I don't really care. So yes, that for me, gun dog training is, they are really ploughing on with how to produce gun dog trainers that are both ethical and positive and understand behaviour. That's important.
The word ethical is a really good word. So I was listening to you talk there, and I've just had lunch with another local dog trainer, and we were talking about old-fashioned trainers. And actually, old-fashioned trainers, I think, is the wrong word, because, like you say, we gain so much experience from old school trainers. And the one thing that she was feeling that is lacking from modern training sometimes is the fact that some dogs haven't got a good foundation and haven't got a good boundary, because it's all about everything must be fun. Well, we all know that in the world it doesn't work like that, you know, and actually if you've got good manners and everything else, you need all of that as well. And I actually think that maybe we ought to say kind of like a non-evasive and non-trauma based, you know, training is probably a better way of saying old-fashioned, because I was brought up that a clip round the ear never did me any harm, but actually it probably did, you know, whereas giving me sweets for being naughty is definitely going to do me harm. So from what you were saying there, it is right. You know, we need these people in our lives, don't we? As much as we nurture new people coming through as well.
Yeah.
Do you find you get a lot of sort of brick walls, should we say, when you do certain events or go to certain training sessions or whatever? Do you find you come across against obstacles when you're trying, like you say, your new sort of more modern way of training? You still find that people are obstructive, should we say?
Not so much. I don't know if I've just got one of those faces that people don't really want to challenge, but I have to say that people are usually quite open. They want to understand, and lots of people believe that the way they train is quicker, and I think that's what quite a lot of old-fashioned type training would have taught you, how to get to where you want to go the quickest. And I do get from, you know, particularly as the kind of sport that it is, there's money to be made and there's money to be lost on gun dogs working. This is, you know, this is not just a happy-go-lucky sport. Sometimes this is people's livelihoods. So yeah, there's a slight difference in that respect. But no, I think in the main, I've been welcomed with open arms. I've had lots of people be very generous with their time and experience. I've had the odd person say, well, I don't know why you do it like that. But that really, I have been lucky. And I've had lots of people say, look, you know, this is where we want to get to. So I obviously go to gun dog trainers myself. And they might say, this is where we want to get to. And I'd say, well, I think I would train it X, Y, and Z. And they're like, great. Well, if you think you can train it like that, you go and train it like that. Like, I have never done it that way, but you go and train it. And then I can come back and say, right, this is what I've done. And then actually we get the benefit of one another's experience, because they can teach me from their perspective where I'm heading. And I can just say, right, I think I can train it in a slightly different way. And with you, Emma, on the labels, you know, I hate a label and I'd unlabel everything and everyone. And I think that's what I find so hard, because a lot of people train in a particular way thinking they are doing best. And we all do our best, right? Until we know better. And then we should be doing better. So I think that for me is why I find it so hard to start labeling people or speaking about them negatively, because I don't believe everyone knows better yet. And that's
and we've said often, haven't we, Alicia, that the worst trainer in the world will be the trainer that says this is the way to do it, and I'm never going to challenge that. That I think we all, and Stuart, we've had that conversation.
The same in agility, then we get old school, to what they class as old school training, and I say the same. It's not necessarily old school; it's just different to what we do, and a
lot of it is physical, isn't it? So from like a gun dog point of view, how old school? So I was watching a bit of the Queen stuff, a bit of the Country File stuff, and and watching the herd, you know, doing the gun dogs and everything. I thought that was amazing. So how would they have trained, say, a retrieve in the olden, in a different way?
To be quite honest, it isn't dissimilar to how we would have trained obedience dogs. So there was no messing around. There was no real fun to be had. You know, when I had a slight issue with my first retriever that didn't understand her label, and I was like, you know, I'm not sure how I'm going to convince her to hold, because when I taught obedience holds, I would do it like this, and I'm being told not to do it like this. And I was very much told that what I should be doing was sitting her in the corner of the kitchen, so therefore she has no choice. So she sits in the corner of the kitchen, I open her mouth, I place the dumbbell in, I hold her mouth shut, and every time she spits it out, I put it back in and I do the same thing. We know that that's exceptionally aversive. You know, we understand now the difference in teaching a dog to hold like that and teaching a dog how I have taught my dogs, which is by back chaining and by clicker training, and by shaping, has all worked beautifully. So I've got really keen retrievers, and what I would have had was really sullen dogs. So my biggest issue now is I think I can see the difference in the dog between a dog that's happy to explore and make choices and try things, to a dog that daren't put a foot out of step because they think they've got it wrong. And I'm not saying that's necessarily that dog's been abused in any way, shape or form, but the way they have been handled, they know corrections as opposed to knowing rewards and reinforcement. And that for me is a very different, I can see it in every sport now, a real difference.
It's the sparkle, isn't it? The sparkle just isn't there.
Yeah, and I don't mind a bit of cheek, you know.
Nairobi.
That's a good job. It's a good job you don't mind a bit of cheek.
Yeah, I don't mind a bit of cheek. And so for me, I just think, I don't know, it's like people, isn't it? I would have responded, and I did respond really poorly as a young person, to those that wanted to get stricter and for me to conform more, whereas those that allowed me to explore and those that allowed me to use my imagination with things, those were the people I look at now and really sort of shaped me. So I think if we can afford that to people, we can afford that to dogs.
Yeah, definitely. And we see that. I'm going to sort this out. I'm going to go and give my dog a Kong, and I believe it's your voice. I believe that she can hear your voice. She's always really settled in her crate. And
when you say always, not always.
I was looking right as you were saying that. I was thinking always.
Always one of them barks. And since I moved house, my office is in the same room as my dogs, and I know my daughter's due in, as she always is at this time in the afternoon when Stuart and I record. So I put the one that normally barks upstairs and the one that's normally quite happy in her crate next to me. And now I can't remember what I was saying at all. Stuart, add something in. I can't remember what I was going to say.
So I was just going to
suddenly disappear. I'm getting a call from I'm going to get a hammer and beat her up.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Get some gaffer tape, shut them out. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I was just going to ask a little bit about the sort of crossover, because obviously I know that Emma does the agility as well as, and she's starting to do the gun dog training. And I know some people have that sort of almost contradiction that you can't or you shouldn't do agility and gun dog, you know, and whatever. And I just wondered how you feel from that crossover point of view. Whether you, I mean, I think it's fine.
Sports, I genuinely think that there are lots of sports that complement one another, and for me, just having a dog do something, a sport, a purpose of some kind, is important, and it has to both suit that dog and suit that person. So the reason that I believe that agility and gun dog training complements, because we see a lot of gun dogs and a lot of gun dog crosses in agility, and we see a lot of frustration because of the amount of short, quick fire sessions that we're asking them to produce once they're competing. And actually the flip side for gun dog training in particular, Emma will tell you this, because I'm forever saying to her, Emma, you need to be less spaniel and more Labrador.
She wants me to be a Labrador.
Slow it down. So, you know, we're really looking at steadiness. We're really looking at methodical working. For a lot of gun dog work, it's kind of just watching what's going on for a bit, you know, in true life, working your gun dog. There's a lot of just hanging around. And then we're asking them to perform, and that requires independence, and that requires some toy integrity, and that requires them to want to kind of get things right. So all of those things that we're teaching, both from a directional point of view, a retrieve point of view, and an obedience point of view, I think cross over beautifully to the skills that we require from an agility dog.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting as well, isn't it? That it's not just me that struggles, it's my dog that struggles as well, because I've trained her that way. I've trained her the quick, sharp, you know,
Quick.
And this is what you're going to do. And she's like, she'll go off and hunt really nicely, and she will retrieve really nicely, but sit, stay, he'll work.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, we've had this discussion, Emma, haven't we, a little bit about sort of self-control before in agility, with agility dogs in general, not necessarily gun dogs, but in agility dogs.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of, I think there's an issue, I suppose, with self-control. And I also think that sometimes we have an issue at the moment in agility, or people think we've got an issue with aggression and dogs, dog attacks almost in the ring, out of the ring. And I think sometimes that comes from over arousal anyway. But if you had a dog that could quite easily sit and, like, say, think about what's going to go on, have a little bit of self-control around different environments, it'll make a massive difference to your agility anyway. Things will be a lot calmer. And I think the dogs are going to, I think dogs are faster when they're calmer.
Yes.
I think as well, the one impact that it's had on me having a gun dog for the first time is as a pet dog. So doing agility with her has had no impact on her being a pest at home at times. The gun dog work has had a massive impact on her being a nice pet at home. She's amazing, you know, whereas you can see all the traits come in, and particularly around the other dogs, if she gets something, she wants to run off and parade with it. Having the gun dog work has made her such a nice pet, and when she runs off with my favourite shoe or whatever it is that she does, she just brings it back nicely into my hands and expects, you know, praise for it as well. So I think from a pet dog point of view, it's had a massive effect. And it's interesting, isn't it, Alicia? We noticed it when you came to me for agility, and likewise, how the different ways that we train impacts on the different things that we did. I always, you know, so obviously in agility, our hands are our direction. Alicia was a treat thrower, and I was like, stop throwing treats. Your dog's just looking on the floor every time she went like this. The dog sort of looked like she went on treats. So I love training other trainers because I think it makes us come out of our boxes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot, haven't we? Not least random words that we can use for particular behaviours. Like we call it that. I already used that. What about Sasha? Yeah, I use that too for something else. So, you know, I
can't remember what my left right was now because I've got a left
away.
Away. That's right. I remember.
So I turned up to Emma with a dog that I'd had a reactive dog before I bought my first gun dog puppy. So she hadn't, I'd trained for years and years and years, but I just hadn't been able to take her. So when I had a young dog that was happy and comfortable to go out, we literally flitted. We went and had a go at like everything. So by the time I turned up at Emma, we'd done like trick training, we'd done obedience work, we'd started gun dog work, you know, and then I was saying now we want to add agility to it. So it was interesting to kind of look at those different points from each of the things that we would tried. I think going back to your point, Stuart, about the, you know, and I'm going to air bracket aggression because I think usually it's redirectional behaviour that we're looking at in agility dogs. I know Emma and I have certainly had conversations about some dogs either at certain points in their lives or just for that dog in particular, that actually agility is not for this dog. Because we know that adds adrenaline and cortisol to their systems. And we know that if we aren't paying off with the right amount of other work, some dogs just don't cope with that load. So I've
done this more and more recently, is that I've actually, you know, somebody says, oh, my dog's got this, my dog's got that, and I want to do agility. I'm like, agility is not the right thing for your dog. You know, I mean, from a pet dog person, you know, if you want to do agility and you want to do something fun and fast and furious with your dog, then agility is the right thing. But if you're trying to solve behavior problems, or, you know, you've got this going on, go scent work, go gun dog, go all of those calming things that actually you want your dogs to do, because my dogs, you know, they don't. And the other thing is, of course, is the fitness levels. I mean, I'm not suggesting, I mean, gun dogs have to be exceptionally fit, but it's a different type of fit, isn't it? It's not that short, sharp sprint that even I have to get fit and conditioned for. It's long, it's stamina based, it's more dealing with the elements and all that type of calm stamina. which quite frankly my agility dogs haven't got. So I have to get them to like a really peak fitness, which can make them a pain in the butt to live with at home.
Yeah.
Especially when if they don't work, suddenly they find themselves not working. They're like, rah,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go traipsing in the cold.
It's probably a good point about owner fitness as well, because for some owners, I'm not naturally built to do agility, hence we did lots of distance handling, and my dogs work beautifully at a distance. But I think, therefore, if you are a person that for whether that be just the amount of time that you can offer to agility or your fitness levels, maybe an activity such as scent or gun dog work or something else is important. I pride myself on being a pet gun dog trainer and just a pet dog trainer, because I think pet dogs, what I've come to realize over the year is that is the hardest job that any dog has, is to just be a pet dog, because just being a pet dog carries so much expectation with it. And so when we are teaching, now I understand that when I'm running puppy classes and I'm introducing beginners or I'm doing training with people, I'm not teaching their dog obedience per se. We're teaching them good manners, and we're teaching them life skills, and we're teaching them how to live with us and how that we interact with one another. And I suppose that's where, for me, the real crossover of training comes from, is that I don't believe I'm teaching people just to train their dogs. I'm teaching them how to live and understand with their dogs.
And of course, everybody has their own idea of a pet dog. Some people wouldn't want their pet dog sitting on their lap while they're making a podcast. For me, it's the most thing in the world. And so not only have we got to train pet dogs, we've got to train the owner to get the pet that they want, which may not have been the correct breed that they bought in the first place, which actually then that needs to conform to media. And we need to do it in an ethical way. No wonder us dog trainers are burnt out.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of expectations, isn't there, when somebody gets a dog, even if it's a pet dog? Because, like, if we go to the media point of view, there's so many things out there now that our dogs should be.
It's awful.
They should be that. And then people, as soon as they get a puppy, they're already going, shit, I've got all this, I've got this, I've got. Dogs only sort of 8, 9, 10 weeks old, and they're already panicking about something that probably won't happen for another 12 months.
Yeah.
And that is because the media puts so much pressure on, and on trainers as well. It's like, well, this dog must be able to do this dog must be able to do that, and it's like almost like mainstream education or alternative education, isn't it? Not every child's going to be like that, not every dog's going to be like that, and particularly with crossbreeds and the gun dog breeding that has gone in. Why do we think that happened, Alicia? Is that because of the banning of foxing? Why did so many gun dogs suddenly get crossed with other households?
Interesting. So for the most part, what started off was that a particular person crossed a poodle with a Labrador, and that was for a very specific element. We know that. What I think we have then realised is that the non-shedding appeals to a lot of people. However, what we also know is, while poodles are fantastic dogs, they have got a brilliant brain, they can be a bit sharp, they can be a little bit aloof, and they don't always make the best pet dogs for people that want a snuggly cuddly. So they then started to cross them with biddable breeds, and you're not going to find anything much more biddable than a gun dog, because they have been bred for thousands of years to be just that, to do as they're told and to work for their owners. You're not going to find something more biddable. So I think we found all the crosses from that, and then I think it's just gone mental.
It just went mental, wasn't it? And one of the most frightening things that I see is when a pet dog owner will say to me, well, his grandfather and his father and his father were field champions, and you're like, oh God, what are you going to do with this dog? Oh, it's just going to be a pet. And you're like, go and meet Alicia.
I think lots of people get a gun dog because of Labradors, and Labradors, I'm sure we're all of a similar ilk. Growing up, they were easy, they were kind, they put up with a plethora of issues that are thrown at them, and they don't really respond to any of those things. They were just good, solid dogs. And I think, it kind of goes on from there, doesn't it? And then people want a nice lively dog because maybe they are quite active themselves. But I think there's active, and then there's spaniel active. And until you've owned a spaniel, right, Emma, you don't really understand the full level of what active truly means to a spaniel. And so I just think it's managing some people's expectations, isn't it, about what dogs they thought and why.
So loving, loving.
Yeah.
And the difference between owning a spaniel and terriers, you know, I always, before, I mean, all right, I had Beth, but before that I've always had terriers, and my terriers are horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love them to death.
But your terriers are terriers, aren't they?
Yeah.
And your gun dog is kind and visible. She wants to be with you. She wants to hang out. Like, look at this.
Wants to hang out. She wants to play with your dog. Yeah, they are beautiful dogs. I'm not sure. I think it was Candice or somebody said to you, it was Candice, like, once you've had a spaniel, you'll never go back. And she's true. I would definitely get.
Definitely, maybe.
Out loud.
Definitely, maybe.
Definitely, maybe get another one.
Myself, if ever I had another big dog, because I'm a little dog person, I would go work in lab. Because the gun dog is definitely, I can, if I wasn't still hooked on the agility, then it would, I'm definitely feeling very, very hooked on the work. And just to see them do their natural stuff is amazing, isn't it?
But there's some amazing working labs there in agility at the moment. I mean, and if we go across that sort of from working labs to breed style labs to pet Labradors, if you just take that dog alone, the difference on scale from a working lab to a pet Labrador is massive. Some of the working labs that I see in agility are amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And that's because they've been bred for all of the same issues. So, you know, the reason that our collies do so well, because they've been bred to use their brains and work independently and have a real turn of speed. Actually, that's what our working gun dogs have been bred to do over the years. I've seen some.
You ever see collies in the gun dog world?
Yeah, I've got one with me at the minute, actually, a collie that's doing some gun dog stuff. I've recently seen some working Goldies, and that threw me, because I genuinely sort of whispered to the person next to me, what is that dog? And they was like, well, she's a working Goldie. And I was like, wow, because she was racy, like really racy in comparison to like a show Goldie. So you could really see the difference. This lady in particular was kind of working in obedience, but yeah, you can really see the difference. So I don't see why there wouldn't be a beautiful crossover for those sorts of things. And a lot more breeds, hopefully, and quite rightly, will become more dual purpose, so that they're not just a show dog or just a this dog. I've got flat coats now. That's the breed that I chose to kind of jump camp into, and they are as a breed and as the kind of foundation behind them of the flat coat society, very much about dual purpose, both that they should be good enough to stand in the ring, but that good show dog should be a damn good working dog, and that working dog should be good enough for the show ring. So, you know, they're really on top of that whole kind of dual purpose that they're looking for.
You know what we need to do? We need a good show. We need a good working dog breeder to come and talk to us. Listening to the crossover of shows and working, you know, we're quite happy with it, but with the breeders actually, because then you're kind of almost working against breed standard then, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean,
or are they? Exactly that.
Because I think there's a big thing, like what the original, let's say the original dog was compared to what the breed dog is now. If you think about that, there's a massive difference. You only have to look through the different books. You only have to Google certain things and see how different the dog is now compared to where it was 100 years ago.
Much better, in some cases very much better, in some cases very much worse.
So I suppose that's down to a breeder, really, how they breed and what they breed.
Really. So if there's any breeders out there that would like to come and talk to us, then come and have a chat.
Absolutely. And just talking very quickly about crossing over from obviously one sport to another and doing whatever, I also think that's good from a handler point of view as well, not just for the dog. So you can actually get out and see how things actually work, because you might have an issue with your dog in, let's say, agility, and then you go and spend 6 months doing some gun dog work and go, that's the problem. Now I can see what the problem is. And it might just take that little bit of something else, somebody else, a different environment, and then you actually see where the issue lies. It might be you, might be the dog, might be the environment, whatever. But until you get out and have a look.
And in all honesty, that was why I went to Alicia in the first place, was when I wanted to know, because I trained spaniels, but I didn't have my own spaniel. I wanted a successful reward system. I wanted to know how her brain ticked before I did the agility. So that's why I went to Alicia to do the gun dog work, because I could do it earlier. I could get to know her. And it really does, even from a reward system point of view, it really does complement the agility.
And I think it gives, you're right in saying it gives some of these dogs a really nice outlet. Like when we've watched Nairobi hunt, if you have a spaniel, you don't want it to sniff in the ring right when you're doing agility. Well, when you see her hunt, if you never allowed that dog to sniff when she was out, you'd be in trouble, because she is bred to hunt. She's a hunting retriever. So, you know, we'd be in all sorts of trouble. Whereas actually we get the outlet, she's allowed to do that. That becomes part of her reinforcement. So when we're looking at her toy integrity and we're looking at, you know, her reward system.
Oh, sorry, what was that word? Integrity.
What we're looking at is understanding what we can put in place that flicks her switch. So yeah, I do think from a handler perspective it works nicely. The more you do with your dog, the more you're going to learn about them, full stop, and the more you're going to learn about yourself in tandem. So yeah, I just don't
be more Labrador, Stuart.
Be more Labrador.
But I also know people that have gone from one, you know, jumped from, let's say, agility into something else, or obedience, or gun dog, and never gone back to agility.
I have no
because
doubt.
they've suddenly gone, hang on a minute, this is what I should be doing. Or vice versa, you know, they've done a bit of gun dog work or obedience or whatever, and they've gone into agility and gone, right, this is what it's all about. So they've swapped from one, you know, so you've got to get out there at some point, have a look at something else.
Yeah, definitely. We're not that good all the time, are we, Stuart?
No.
We allow people to go and do other things with their dogs.
I've never been one of those trainers that have stopped anybody from going anywhere. If they want to go and do something, go and do it. It's fine by me. As long as there's no harm being to the dog or you, then just go and do whatever you need to do. So I know loads of people that do scent work and man trailing and all of it's a piece to go with it, and come to me for agility, and then go do hoopers somewhere else, and then
exactly that. So Alicia, just before we wrap up, what would you say to anybody? I mean, obviously you're the best around this area, so I would say come to you. But anybody that's looking for an ethical gun dog trainer, how do they go about it? What should be their protocol in finding an ethical gun dog trainer?
So I would really encourage them to take some time, and I would say this with anybody, no matter whether you are training a particular sport or just attending a pet dog class. Go and watch first. The person that just happens to be in your area just happens to be delivering what you're looking for, because I know lots of people that happen to sign up for stuff or get involved in something and then either feel too uncomfortable to leave, or they've paid good money, right, or just do what they're told, but know deep down in their gut that doesn't feel right for some reason. So that just because we don't have on the floor the amount of positive reinforcement gun dog trainers that I would like to suggest that they go and see, please go and watch, go and see if you're happy. Look at the dogs, look at the people. Are you happy with it? I run an open door policy. I know you run an open door policy, Emma. And that for me is just that says I've got nothing to hide. You can jump out of a bush at any point that I'm doing any training and you are happy to sit and watch what I do, because I'm confident in what I deliver and I can explain to you why I'm doing something. So if anybody doesn't want you to go and watch, that's probably my first red flag. The other things you can look into is you can look into the Gun Dog Trainers Academy. So Helen Phillips and Jules Morgan are trailblazing in the UK with their Gun Dog Trainers Academy, taking trainers both from a crossover point of view and people that are learning new, and put in ethical, well instructed with, you know, brilliant understanding of behaviour and learning theory, brilliant application skills, and well supported trainers on the ground across the country, and that's building up over time. So look at the Gun Dog Trainers Academy. Also look at the Gun Dog Trust. They took a really, I'm going to use the word brave, but probably a really integral decision to cut their membership. So they cut out any instructors that were not providing force-free gun dog training, which dropped their list of available instructors right down, and they are slowly building.
Great thing to do. Yeah,
really brave thing to do. But they decided they wanted to be ethical and force free, and so to do that they had to promote the right trainers. And so now you have to not only work your dog to a particular grading within the Gun Dog Trust, but you also have to provide information that you have application of knowledge. And I think that's right. I think if they're going to put trainers forward, that's the right thing to do. So those two places for me are the places you can go and have a look. But if you do have someone, find somebody locally, you know, loads of people kind of post now on Facebook and stuff, don't they? And
yeah, we'll put a link onto your
Go and look.
website as well.
Thank
Is
you.
it, that's all right. Is it the website that's best or your Facebook page, or does it not matter?
Probably either or. Yeah, probably either or. They can come through one or the other, not a problem.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Stuart and I will sort that out. So have you got any further questions, Stuart?
No, it's been really interesting, actually. It's really cool. Good for me, like I say, because I don't know a great deal about gun dog training apart from what I hear and see when people come, whatever. So it's good to have an insight into it. And like I say, for me, it was there was still that little bit of I'm going to say a stigma, but there was still that little bit of something about gun dog training that for me was always hard or harsh. And I did have some people that train with me agility that wouldn't do certain things, and I was like, wow, you're not going to get on very well if you don't do this. And then it also sparks that, well, what goes on at gun dog? If you're not going to do that here, what goes on when you're training or working your gun dog? How does that work? But so yeah, it's been really good for me to have a little bit of an insight into what's going on there. It's good.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we will see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, and I'll hopefully see you soon.
Yes.
Yeah. See you
All
later.
right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.